What is up, Story 2025? You're here. How are you guys? Oh, man. Greetings. Welcome. Who's ready for some magic? Okay. I know some of you know me. If you don't, my name's Harris. We throw that word around quite a bit around here, and I don't want there to be any confusion when I say magic, or at least when I say the word magic. Some of you guys know my story. This is footage from my very first magic show when I was 11 years old. Check this out. I know, right? I grew up in a small town in southeast Tennessee, about 2.5 hours from where we're all sitting right now. And in that town, I wasn't one of the cool kids. I wasn't really good at anything. I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't good at band. I was just really struggling to belong and fit in. I was just the weird kid, getting bullied every day on the playground. And then when I was 9 years old, I got this little magic kit for Christmas from my grandmother. And that little box of magic tricks completely changed my life. It took 2 years, but I finally got paid $25 to do my first professional magic show. I spent all $25 on this photo shoot. I know we got some photographers in the room. I think you can tell you get what you pay for when it comes to photography, right? And started traveling around the world doing crazy stuff. I've had a crazy story, and I won't go into too much detail because it's not about me, and many of you have heard this before. But I'm just trying to catch everyone up to speed to give you some context at what you're at, because some of you walked into this room and you're like, what did I just sign up for? Like, this is the weirdest conference I've ever been to, and it's only 15 minutes in. As I started traveling around doing these magic shows, pretty quickly I started succeeding. By the time I was 14, I had dropped out of high school. 15 years old, I was making six figures, touring, doing magic shows. I still remember tax time when my parents sat me down at a little kitchen table going, Harris, you just made 6 figures this year? That's more money than we've ever made in 2 years combined. It was crazy. I did finish high school, for the record. My parents called it hotel school instead of homeschool because I was just on the road full time, doing 150 events a year, traveling around to conferences, cutting people in half, putting them back together again, jumping in tanks of water, doing Harry Houdini's famous water torture cell escape, getting out of straitjackets, all sorts of crazy stuff. And I got so good at this that by the time I was 21 years old, I'd made $1 million doing magic shows. And by 22, I was bankrupt. Now, if I could tell you some stories, and we had time for all of them, the stories I could tell between those 12 months, right? Making $1 million by 21 and going bankrupt by 22, how does that happen? The short version is my vocation became my lifestyle. As an illusionist, I was trained from a young age to be good at what I do, which means I could walk out on these stages, and you guys would do what you just did for me earlier. I didn't even have to do a magic trick. You just clapped. I don't even know how I know I deserved that yet, right? But it sure felt good. And it felt so good, especially at these ages, that I would walk off stage, but I could never stop performing, which means the show never stopped. My vocation as an illusionist became my lifestyle because I became addicted to the approval of other people. And when you live for the approval of others, it feels like you're dying by their rejection. And so I just tried to keep up with the Joneses, and $1 million is not enough to keep up with the Joneses. And so when you find your identity in the eyes of others, you plow through money very quickly. And then every night, I'm in these water tanks and straitjackets, and it just starts to feel like a strange metaphor for the life that I was living. And I'm like, is this it? I feel like I'm drowning. Well, that is a byproduct of something that we've all called the information age. Now, we can't blame it all on the age that we're in, but we're going to talk a little bit about this over the course of the next 2 days, and my hope is that we equip you for this massive transition that I think is happening in our culture. You see, in the information age, most of us have eventually gotten to the point where we take in about 4,000 to 5,000 stories a day. Now, there's debate among even the people sitting in this room about what a story is, right? But in short, we could just say 4,000 to 5,000 messages. Depending on how media saturated of a life you're living, that can get as high as 10,000 messages a day. Buy this, drive this, wear this, do this, and it'll give you life. And then we go to bed, still feeling a little bit empty, going, is this story true? And even illusionists that become experts in deception are capable of being deceived into telling themselves stories that aren't true. So where did this information age come from? And has it been bad? I don't think so. A lot of people think that the information age began in the internet, and I don't think that's the case. The internet just sort of accelerated what was already happening. It began with this. Remember this moment? You don't, you weren't there, but we all studied it in school, right? You guys are nodding your heads like, yep, I was there 300 years ago in Germany. When Gutenberg invented the printing press, all of a sudden, think about this, the knowledge of the day started getting organized for information. It started getting printed in books, and for the first time in human history, it could be distributed at scale. Was that good or bad? It was pretty good for some people. People stopped dying as often because they had access to life-changing information. Doctors could be like, hey, don't do it that way, do it this way instead now, right? So the information age was pretty awesome. It gave us access to life-saving knowledge, connected us globally, democratized education, accelerated science and innovation. The information age gave us entirely new industries, fueling economic growth. It gave ordinary people a platform to spark positive movements. And now we all have these little devices in our pockets, and anyone, instead of getting approval from just a publisher or just a TV network, any of us can talk to people, and we can use that for good if we choose. The information age also overwhelmed us with too much information. It sort of fractured our attention. It made it harder than ever to focus. With that also became the spread of misinformation and disinformation, often at the speed of truth, right? It trapped us in these sort of echo chambers, amplifying division and polarization. It took a toll on our mental health with anxiety and comparison culture. Perhaps most importantly, we started rewarding clickbait over creativity. We started rewarding quantity over quality. All of a sudden, we started being conditioned by these little magical devices to crave certainty. We struggle to believe in something we cannot see unless it can be explained to us in a 30-second YouTube video, because we all feel so uncomfortable with mystery and ambiguity that even if you watch a magician do a magic trick, you want to Google it because the wonder feels so threatening and disruptive to your status quo. And with that psychological reconditioning, our wonder has been eroded. We kind of Googled our way to the illusion of knowledge, right? Without the depth of understanding. And then you have very successful people on television saying things like this: within 10 years, AI will replace many doctors and teachers. Humans won't be needed for most things. Maybe you saw the clip. Check this out.
Will we still need humans?
Not for most things. We'll decide.
I mean, hosting a talk show, definitely.
It's fine, everything's fine. Does this stress anybody out? It does me, right? When I hear something like that, I'm just like, well, I don't know if I agree with him. He's probably smarter than me, I'm not sure. Like, what? He has access to a lot of resources and has all these people around him. Like, that's scary because I'm one of those, I'm a human. And yet I use AI almost every single day for a variety of things. And so how do I navigate this? Do I just sort of plug my ears and go, it's gonna be fine, la la la, it's all unicorns and rainbows, don't worry about it? Here's the great news for me and every single one of you in this room. The information age, though it was filled with amazing greatness and extraordinary magic in many ways, and even though it has brought a lot of bad and has fractured our culture in many ways, the information age is over. And that's what we're all feeling, that I think many of us don't have the language to make sense of. And so as we are these meaning-making creatures telling our stories to make sense of the world, we're trapped in that lack of wonder and that addiction to the certainty that the information age conditioned us to feel comfortable in. And now we're going, what is going on? What's going on is we're venturing into a new age that doesn't just have updated attributes, it's an entirely new paradigm. Now, I'm not the first person to ever talk about the name of this new age. It started being written about by a guy named Charlie Mackay. He sort of coined this term called the age of imagination. This is one of the things that he wrote in a paper that he released in 1993. The task we should undertake now is to learn to develop our imaginations. For it is the most imaginative people of any period of human evolution who are the leaders. He wrote that in 1993. He and some other people, futurists, that were thinking about how to make sense of what's coming down the pipeline, of what, the internet didn't create, but simply accelerated. He started calling it, hey, we're gonna venture into this new age where it's not about information anymore. It's about imagination. On the heels of that, a British writer, Rita J. King, said this: in the imagination age, we can collectively imagine and create the future we want to inhabit before we lose that chance. Before we lose that chance. My friends, I'm here with great news. The information age is over, and the imagination age, it will be awesome. Why? Humans. Humans are amazing. Look around. Seriously, look. Oh, you're so desensitized to the magic. I could tell, right? You just looked and you're like, where's the magic? I don't see any magic. Like, you guys walked in. This was so funny. I was standing back here looking through the curtain. No, I was over here, and the doors opened, and I was like, the room is so magical. And everyone pulled out their phones, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, dude, there's magic walking down the stairs next to you. No one was ever like, can I take your photo? You're a human. And yet, why don't we act like this when we see other humans? Because you were desensitized to that magic and this wonder that we used to feel 100 years ago when we watched a magic show and went, whoa. And then before we could go home and Google all the secrets, because Google took the quest out of the question, now we're kind of stuck going, yeah, humans, I don't know, my phone does some pretty cool stuff, right? So there's some changes that have to happen. It's not just a new paradigm, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes with this. The imagination age, it demands new intelligence. Think about this. What type of intelligence did we thrive with in the information age? Analytical intelligence, mathematical intelligence, technical intelligence, the stuff that allowed humans to go, dude, we could just get out of this and we could get a computer to do that, right? What can a computer never do? The imagination age, and those of you who want to thrive in it, it's right here. It's a very short list, narrative intelligence. A growing and awareness of the stories that we tell ourselves and the underlying narratives that are connected to those stories that are driving all of our beliefs and behavior. Artistic intelligence. You may not identify as a creative in this room, but you are welcome here because I believe that every human being is innately creative. And if you think that's not a label that you deserve, we are not going to let you off the hook. Because you're like, oh, I'm not one of those creatives. He is or she is. Well, that means subconsciously you might feel tempted to escape your responsibility to leverage your innate creativity to be a part of helping us build a better world. And you've got solutions to bring to the table. We need you to develop your artistic intelligence, grow your emotional intelligence. Now, that's not just about intelligence. It also requires different skills. Think about the skills, right? What have the last few decades been about? Management, reporting, compliance, management. Let's manage people. Let's manage projects. The imagination age, it's about leadership, storytelling, creativity. And perhaps one of the things that I don't hear anyone talking about is the shift in the currency that makes up our economy. And I think this is important for every single person in this room, regardless of what you do for a living, what stories you tell, what you create. Because the information age was all about information, your value to the people you work for, your clients that hire you to do creative work, the person who employs you, was based on your knowledge, which means we prioritized education. The more I know, the more valuable I'll become because the information age ushered in a knowledge-based economy. Here's what's cool. If you can wrap your head around this, the imagination age is bringing in a wisdom economy because knowledge is now abundant and cheap, but wisdom is increasingly rare and invaluable. ChatGPT does not ask me questions unless I ask it one first. Knowledge might give you the answers to the test, but you've got to know what's on the test to have the right answers. And even if you have them, I can subscribe to the answers and knowledge that you guys have for $20 a month. But what I don't have is the wisdom that you have, the byproduct of the story that you have lived and how you've integrated those insights back into your life. Because while knowledge gives us the answers, wisdom enables us to ask the right questions. And in the imagination age, wisdom begins in wonder. Now, that's what Socrates says, wisdom begins in wonder. And a lot of us associate wisdom with age and experience, and I don't think that that's untrue. But there's some wisdom in your childhood, right? Before you became a teenager, before you started growing up and you thought you knew how the world worked, and you thought better than all the adults around you, and I'm gonna stop listening to these people, I'm just gonna do my own thing. You had wisdom when you were a child. And sure, you have to go back and recapture some of that, but part of the source of wisdom when you were a child wasn't your age because you haven't lived that many years yet. It was the fact that when you were a little kid, that wonder ran wild. And if you don't want to believe a philosopher, here's a dead scientist. Albert Einstein said it this way, he who can no longer pause to wonder and just stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. Why? It's as if they're living and just walking around with their eyes closed. None of you would go back and start your creative work staring at whatever the blank canvas is for you and just go, I'm just going to do this one blind. But you don't create enough space in your life for wonder, which is eliminating your ability to bring all the wisdom that you have inside of you to the project. And it's as if your eyes are closed. Because wonder is not just a feeling. Maybe we used to think that, but then all of a sudden neuroscientists at UC Berkeley, they started studying things like awe and wonder. And they realized this isn't just a feeling, we have agency over it, we can choose it. Wonder isn't just a feeling, it's a neurological doorway to wisdom. So when I think about that little 11-year-old kid trying to find belonging, trying to figure out who he is and find his place in the world, it is right around this age that I started asking some questions. But instead of trusting some of the innate wisdom that was inside of me or the wisdom of that inner child, I started listening to the stories in the world around me. And both fortunately and unfortunately for this room, storytellers are incredibly powerful. Quite literally, some of those powerful people in the world will talk about that. And then I found myself in this season, getting out of straitjackets. After I lost $1 million by 22, or wasted it, I didn't know what to do with my life. All I know how to do was magic. It's all I'd done since the age of 11. I found myself in a school in the state of Michigan. Many of you have heard this story. The principal encouraged me to share my story that day, and before I could interrupt him and be like, hey, dude, I'm not like a storyteller, motivational magician, I'm just a magician. He goes, I believe in you, and he introduced me to 1,000 high school kids. I don't remember what I did that day exactly. I remember at the end, I got out of a straitjacket. And after I got out of the straitjacket, I looked over at the principal who had his hands crossed, and he was leaning up against the gym wall, and he makes eye contact with me, and he goes, come on. And I was like, oh yeah, that story thing, story. I mean, I was good at telling stories, but my story? Nah, it's all about the clients. I'm gonna keep my story out of this. I didn't know what to do, and I was staring at this straitjacket, similar to how I'm pointing it in that photo. I didn't really know what to say, but all I could think about in that moment was how many straitjackets it felt like I had tried to escape in my lifetime. From abuse in my childhood, from a mentor when I was a little kid, first starting out in magic, to addiction that I struggled with as a teenager, to being addicted to the approval of other people by 21, to a mountain of hundreds of thousands of dollars of bad debt from trying to keep up with the Joneses, straitjacket after straitjacket after straitjacket. And all I knew to say that day was to tell my story and say, these are my straitjackets, and I don't know what your straitjacket is, but I have a feeling we all have one. These are some of mine. I've gone first. I encourage you to maybe share your story with somebody, but keep going. There's always hope. I don't know if we have any presenters in the room, and if you've ever given a bad talk, that was not a great talk. Now, some of you are like, oh, that's clever, straitjacket metaphor, I like what you did there. My inner critic was waging war on my soul. It was like, what were you doing? You should have stuck to the magic show. What was all that stuff? You just bared your soul. I felt naked. I was just like, wow, I got to get out of here. This room feels so weird, right? And then all of a sudden, everybody leaves. The principal didn't even come over and say anything. He just gave me a thumbs up and went back to work. All the students give me like golf claps, right? And I'm down there packing up my stuff. I'm like, that was so dumb. And there's one young lady still sitting up in the bleachers. Because the steps were metal, you could hear her feet coming down. She starts walking down to me over on the gym floor. I'm like, what is she doing? As she got closer, I kind of keep looking up at her, and she has tears coming down her cheeks. She goes, hey, Mr. Harris, I have something for you. I was like, okay. She comes over, she sticks her hand in her pocket, she just holds her hand out like this. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just went, I cupped my hands out like this. She inched forward, she opened up her hands, she dropped a razor blade into my hand. And she said, that's my straitjacket. I don't want it anymore. And I think you're the first person to ever make me feel like there's hope. And then she turned and she walked away. Now, in that moment, I didn't even get her name, but I remember seeing her sheepishly put her hands in the pockets of her hoodie, turn around, and walk away from me. And as she did, I saw her sleeves come up, I saw the wrists and the scars on her arms. And in that moment, I became obsessed with a few things. One, I became far more obsessed with making meaning than making money. And guys, I've made so much more money chasing meaning than prioritizing making money ever since. But I wanted more of that. Instead of just entertaining people or helping them like escape, I helped them feel. And there was something magical that made it possible. And I don't think it was the tricks, because I'd done all the tricks before, but I'd never done that. And I realized after going down the rabbit hole of research that it was the power that you guys have in this room, the power of a story well told that matters. It's what Steve Jobs said. It's a quote that most of us have heard. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. So I started thinking, well, hold up. If storytellers are this powerful, shouldn't someone be gathering them together to have a conversation around how we wield this power? I mean, I watched Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, right? And it just didn't feel like it was happening the way it was supposed to. And so Kate and I, my wife, we'd been married for over 10 years at the time, and we're just like, I feel like we're supposed to pick a venue in Nashville and invite storytellers from all over the world. She's like, what happens if it doesn't work? And I was like, I think we have to sell our house and like go find another one or something, but we're not gonna be homeless or anything. She's like, okay, let's do it. And she believed in it. And in 2016, a few hundred of you showed up, and we lost a bunch of money, and we're like, that's okay, let's try it again. Let's try it again next year, see if we can get this thing working. And then the next year, like 800 people showed up, and then 1,000, and then 1,200, and then it was amazing. And the banners that flew for the first time out in front of these columns, we did that for 7 years, gathering storytellers from all over the world. And right before COVID, as that happened, all the researchers at UC Berkeley, they started studying positive awe states. And one of the things that we were trying to figure out was like, well, hold on. We know narrative drives human behavior, but just telling someone a story doesn't seem to always lead to change. What's going on? And one of the most beautiful pieces of the research about awe and wonder is that curiosity is sort of wonder in action. And your brain has a vice grip on all the narratives that you have adopted as true. And it is only an experience of awe where your wonder and your imagination gets stirred. You become more curious. And it's like the awe loosens the vice grip and opens your mind up to the possibility of what could be. So if I try to invite you into a new story outside of a state of wonder, you're like, nah, I've got a story. I'm going to stick to that one. But if I can stir your imagination, if I can awaken your wonder, your brain doesn't necessarily go, I think that new story is true, but it at least goes, I don't know, maybe it's better than the one I'm currently in. I then got asked to write a book on that intersection of all the research around awe and wonder and stories that we tell ourselves. That book was called The Wonder Switch. It came out in 2020. One of my heroes, Seth Godin, sent me an email, just said, Harris, I just found your book, blown away by your book. Here's something if you want to use it. And I was like, I think I'll use it. He said, this is a powerful, generous, and unforgettable book about our ability to care and to lead. So then I started going, okay, all these companies that are coming to Story, they're asking us to come help and coach their teams and consult on projects and produce their events. What is going on? So we formalized our company, Istoria. Since then, we've built 6 different pillars: our studio, a publishing imprint, a studio that's producing amazing content, including podcasts, our gatherings, which you're at right now, our institute, which has been certifying and training people in applied narrative intelligence and experiential narrative practices, our guild, these little pockets of communities where we serve people and help develop them both personally and professionally, the collective, our business partners that we are forming outside of the Istoria brand itself, and then of course our nonprofit foundation arm, so we can empower and raise up another whole generation of storytellers. And I look back on this story and the roller coaster ride that I've been on, and you know what it leaves me feeling? It's gonna shock you. Wonder. It's one of my favorite quotes from G.K. Chesterton. I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and that gratitude is happiness, doubled by wonder. I don't know what story you brought into this room with you this morning. I saw some of you rushing to get in the door at the last second. I'm so glad you're here. But maybe now might be, and we'll do more of this momentarily, but now might be an opportunity just to take one really deep breath, to acknowledge the space that you're in, the people in the space around you, and just take a moment to look at something or find something in your mind or in the room that just makes you go, wow, wow. Because that moment of gratitude, that's happiness, but we can double it with wonder. I had one of those moments when that young lady dropped that razor blade into my hand. I went on with my life. I never forgot about her. I was like, man, I wish I would have connected with her. I wonder what she's doing in the world. One day in 2020, I wasn't on the road traveling around doing magic shows or producing conferences like this. We were all gathering together online. And I came across this photo and I posted it to Instagram and I retold that story. I was like, hey, maybe some of you read about it in my book. This young lady dropped a razor blade in my hand. I went to bed, didn't think about it. 24 hours went by. I got a DM from a young lady by the name of Jessica Lynn. That DM said this. I'm not sure if this is a coincidence or not. Maybe it's happened more than once, but I think I was that girl that you're referring to in your most recent post in Michigan at a school gym in 2012. I didn't realize that day was as impactful for you as it was for me. I gave you my razor blade. I never picked another one up. I graduated high school, went to college, obtained my master's degree, and I'm now a child and family therapist. This memory still holds a huge place in my heart and has played a big role to where I am today in my life. And maybe I'm not the girl you're referring to, but that just means you've impacted others the way that I was impacted, which was life-changing. My friends, you don't have to be a magician to make real magic happen. You don't even have to know how to perform magic tricks, but you've got a story to tell. And if you haven't paused to acknowledge this reality lately, let me just remind you that your story matters. Not just the stories you're telling on behalf of your clients, yours. It matters. And if you came into this room expecting for your life to be changed, I hope that happens. We're going to try to create moments that stir some transformation inside of you and prepare you for the imagination age and beyond. But if you came in here expecting, I'm here just for professional development, and I want to keep my personal stuff out of this, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, that's going to be really hard. Because not the kind of gathering you were at. We're going to explore it all. And the more open and curious you are, and the more we succeed in this environment that our team has created for you to stir your imagination, to stir and awaken that sense of childlike wonder, the easier those new stories will be to explore. To catch you up on full context, I got this DM. A few more years went by, 3 to be exact. I kept in touch with Jessica, and I thought someday I would love to meet her in person. Usually at Story, we sometimes have this big closing guest, like a cool celebrity who's done amazing things. Sometimes we interview them, sometimes they give a talk. In Story 2022, the last time we gathered in this room, and about half of you were there, I introduced our closing guest, Jessica Lynn. And she came out on stage. I got to give her a big hug. And we reconnected after all those years later, and then we finished our conversation asking her to turn to you and going, what would you say to a room full of storytellers? And her words were inspiring. In short, she said this: your stories matter. You're the most powerful people in the world. And you can tell stories to manipulate. The science makes it possible to hijack someone's brain. You can tell stories to make more money. That's not bad. But we can tell stories that are incredibly hopeful and productive to help our culture and world heal, or we can tell stories that divide and conquer and sell widgets and services. And I think this is the room that tells stories that matter. So what if, regardless of what story you came in here with this morning, there's a story that you are about to bump into and discover that will expand the way that you're perceiving the world around you? That's what we're going to explore over the next 2 days. You guys ready?